Making headlines for this week of July 13th. Siesta no more. Mexicans are showing the world what it means to be awakened and engaged peacefully. Disclosure continues. The UK government releases files, and Obama may have been behind recent Roswell announcements. Banking on collapse. Some of the latest from the world of financial reform. And understanding, preparing for, and celebrating transitions. Death Midwifery offers a way to begin preparing for transitions of loved ones in these rapidly changing times.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. The mainstream media appears to be desperately trying to keep a lid on what is arguably, but very possibly, the largest mass rally of awakened people in the world. The people of Mexico are not happy with the election results that were recently announced, declaring that the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, or PRI candidate, Enrique Peña Nieto, as the country's new president-elect, to replace outgoing president and current PRI leader Felipe Calderón. Russia Today, RT.com, has reported that the alleged winner, Nieto, received 38.2% of the total votes. He is being challenged by the leader of the Partido de la Revolución Democrática, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, on the grounds of voter fraud related to vote buying. The PRD party received 31.6% of the votes. In a country, however, that is known for election fraud, the people of the country are awakening to say that they will no longer take this sitting down. They have stood up, and they have done so in a huge way. Official numbers vary, but the number of people protesting in the capital city, Mexico City, with a population of around 29 million people, is estimated in the high hundreds of thousands, and very possibly millions of people if you include all across the country. Andrew Kenneth, an investigative journalist in Mexico City, commented on what he was observing in an interview recorded with RT.com.
Well, basically, since the pre-count election results were announced just last Monday, there's been an extraordinary amount of opposition and social fervor here in Mexico throughout the country, especially where Andrés Manuel López Obrador's support is strongest in Mexico City. There was a spontaneous protest right at the Federal Institute Electoral offices, right, when announcements were being made about a recount being done. And then there was a massive protest on Saturday that was really done actually throughout the country and all the public plazas in the country, but was shown in its strongest and biggest, example of opposition right in the nation's capital's main plaza. What happened actually after that was there was a spontaneous protest that erupted right outside of a wedding of a major Televisa personality whose name was Eugenio Derbez. And actually, ironically, Derbez was a supporter of the movement, but nonetheless, the protesters targeted the wedding as a kind of a symbol of Televisa, which is really the second target of all the opposition and the protesters. It's not just Enrique Peña Nieto, who they're opposing, but it's also the alliance that was revealed actually by investigative reports in The Guardian between the president-elect and Televisa in terms of contracts and deals, some airtime bought, some basically negotiated, dating all the way back to 2005, and with some deals, as we revealed through documents that were unearthed again by The Guardian, the London-based daily, as recently as 2009. So Televisa controls about two-thirds of the country's free-to-air channels and has really been the darling of the president-elect. And like I said, with this new generation that's connected to Twitter, to Facebook, to each other through text messaging and other digital apparatus, they're really, really ticked, so to speak, and actually are leading the protests against, again, not only the president-elect, but also Televisa itself.
So, Andrew, you're saying that it wasn't only perhaps some election fraud going on, but it was just the media monopolization and kind of putting him up on a pedestal and controlling the message.
That's definitely part of the equation, but I don't want to eliminate the other half.
No, yeah, go into that. I was just going to...
The protesters are just as angry and just as in opposition to the various vote buying schemes that were arranged. The most prominent of which was really with the grocery chain called Soriana. And actually, one of the few papers to cover this a little bit more critically here in Mexico City showed a picture of the president-elect, ironically, with a T-shirt of Soriana standing in front of the supermarket, holding his thumbs up. And really what was done there was that there were, basically voters organized and given prepaid Soriana kind of gift-buying grocery cards, anywhere from 100 to 1,000 pesos, both before, during, and after the election. The biggest supporters of the opposition campaigns, have been really rallying around that as being the focal point of the vote buying scheme, and have said that at least 3 million votes were pretty much, contested and bought or coerced through those specific means. But there are other vote buying schemes as well, or coercion schemes as well, including through the nation's leading teachers union, which also compelled or coerced many of its members to vote for Peña Nieto too. All varying schemes of illegalities that fly in the face of electoral law here in Mexico, to the point where Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who is challenging the results of the election, is now bringing his case to the electoral tribunal, and they have until September 6th to decide who will be the official winner. Because as of now, there still really is not an official winner, thanks to all the allegations and all the controversy that's swirling down here.
According to one website, disclose.tv, the largest public protests, rallies, and demonstrations that the world has ever seen are happening right now, with almost no media coverage. Not only is there a blackout on these events in the media, but YouTube is frequently removing footage of these mass rallies and events when requested to do so by governments. Google, the owner of YouTube, has complied with the majority of requests from governments, particularly in the United States and the UK, not only to remove YouTube videos, but also specific web search terms and thousands of data requests. What is perhaps intriguing about the disclosure news this week is that the government of the UK has again released a significant amount of its documentation relating to disclosure. What makes this intriguing is the timing of this particular disclosure immediately ahead of the Olympics. More information will be coming shortly about the Olympics. According to the UK National Archives website, the files contain a wide range of UFO-related documents, drawings, letters, and parliamentary questions from 1965 to 2008. The information can be downloaded from the ufos.nationalarchives.gov.uk website. In other disclosure news, several videos have appeared indicating sightings in Hollywood, USA, and also in Chelmsford, UK. The Chelmsford video is quite interesting, with numerous sparkling lights in a bright blue sky. The video is posted on the CBN Facebook page, and the link to this video will also be posted in the summary to the show. Russia Today, RT.com, has also reported that a number of UFO orbs have been spotted in different locations around the world. The fast-flying orbs have been spotted in the US and in Europe simultaneously. The first sighting was apparently over Salt Lake City, Utah, around June 30th. Following that were sightings in Poland, Greece, and Slovakia. The footage that was uploaded by witnesses seems to indicate that the sightings were happening almost simultaneously in different parts of the world. According to the website, the trajectory of the orbs was nothing like any man-made flying object. The orbs were of red and orange and were moving very fast, according to witnesses. London's telegraph.co.uk website has reported a story indicating that US soldiers have said that aliens have deactivated British and US nuclear missiles. For most listeners, this will not come as a surprise, as several sources have reported this as having happened in the past. The article indicates that aliens have landed, and evidence suggests at least 7 years ago, but likely much longer than this. It is also alleged that the beings have tried to warn the US and Russia that they were playing with fire during the Cold War. As far back as 2010, a UK survey has suggested that 50% of the population believes in life from other planets. The soldiers are speaking out with the intent of pressing the two governments to recognize the long-standing extraterrestrial visits as fact. According to the website, one of the men, Captain Robert Salas, has said, "The U.S. Air Force is lying about the national security implications of unidentified aerial objects at nuclear bases, and we can prove it." Several other officers are also expected to share what they know in September at a meeting in Washington. A story reported today by OpenMinds.tv is reporting on a developing deeper story behind CIA agent Chase Brandon's announcement on Coast to Coast Radio on June 23rd that the object of speculation at Roswell so many years ago was in fact a craft of non-Earth origin. The website reports a team of people as having contacted the CIA but would not receive any official acknowledgement regarding Chase's claims. There appears to be something else, however. Grant Cameron, who runs the website presidentialufo.com, suspects that there is orchestration behind the scenes. This news will obviously excite listeners who believe Obama is trying to do the right thing at this time and is sneaking out tidbits of information ahead of the coming election, much the same as he did with Will Smith several weeks back. According to Cameron, there is more evidence that's coming up to show that this is a setup from the CIA. Cameron believes that it has the approval of the president. Cameron gave a recent interview on the web series Spacing Out and stated that Chase Brandon can't go on Coast to Coast and talk about UFOs if he hasn't got approval. He had to have had approval from the CIA. Cameron goes on to say that Obama, I think, is behind it. This would not happen unless Obama had approved this. The CIA will not step out and do something stupid in an election year unless they have the approval of the White House. They're not going to pull this thing off unless they've got Obama's okay. This could pave the way for an election that is out of this world. And in related unusual news, in what may appear to be a bizarre move, or perhaps one of the more desperate attempts of the cabal in the U.S. Republican Party to discredit President Obama, the Republicans appear to have entered into waters that they hope will fuel fear of a false flag invasion of Galactics to get Obama out of office. Or it may be seen as yet another soft disclosure tactic. PoliticsUSA.com is running a story with the title, "Republicans Try to Scare America into Supporting Romney by Claiming Obama's from Outer Space." Most listeners will begin to see immediately the possible directions that this story could go. There are sources indicating that Obama participated in a program that took several people to Mars, including Andrew Basiago and Barry Soetoro, allegedly the former name of Barack Obama, and this occurred many years ago. Galactic and Celestial Messages have often spoke of Obama as a starseed lightworker who is receiving their protection from the cabal in order to begin implementing the plans he has been wanting to implement but has been unable to do so due to the dark cabal control. However, in light of the desperation that has begun sinking in within many areas of the dark cabal, it seems that desperate times call for desperate tactics, and this one may just blow up in the face of the Republicans, who may likely find that an attempt to create fear through a potential false flag invasion will only serve to make the public realize that this truth has been covered up for so long that they will not believe anything the Republican establishment has to say. Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus claims that Obama doesn't live on Earth. Now, to be fair, he would say that he is using this in the context that Obama's policies are just not reflective of what humans may need. However, between the lines, one could begin to see that seeds are being planted for something else. That particular analogy has not likely been used when referring to a sitting president. You might hear on drugs, or perhaps not in touch with reality. These may be more common terms. Why this particular term, and why now, in light of all that is currently happening regarding this issue? The reporter sums up the story nicely in commenting that when the best thing that the Republicans can say about their candidate is that he lives on Earth, they think, then the GOP has a lot of problems. Some new and potentially very intriguing possibilities are beginning to unfold with regards to the class action lawsuit that was filed last week in Toronto, naming the Government of Canada, the Queen, the Pope, the United Church, Roman Catholic, and Church of England, as well as numerous pharmaceutical companies, relating to the primary issue of the alleged mistreatment and attempted genocide of First Nations children in Canada. Although the case is taking place in Canada, the repercussions are very global in scope, and arguably a case such as this has the potential to shake loose many of whatever foundations are left of the Dark Cabal's House of Cards. This is not a simple case because of how it is so interconnected to so many different facets of the global society. This was the original intent and design of the system set up by the Dark Cabal. They never expected people who would be willing to do all the research and legwork to navigate through their maze of enslavement and control, let alone survive whatever threats and force were perpetrated among individuals daring to follow that path. What is happening now is that many are starting to come together, and they are bringing the pieces of what has been accomplished in the past combined with all that is now being revealed in the present. CVN is choosing not to focus on all the historical actions. Anyone wishing to learn more about the history of this action can go to the website ITCCS.org. CVN is most interested in helping people understand how to begin moving forward once it has been identified how the Dark Cabal has enslaved and harmed humanity. For this reason, I will start from last week, and reference to past events will only be used as supporting information for what could happen in the coming future. So last week, the initial filing was made to seek direction from the court about how to proceed and whether or not they would be allowed to proceed. That went even better than was expected, because not only did they get permission to proceed, but even more information was made available to assist the case. Other information related to the lawsuit that was filed by Neil Keenan has also been shown to be relevant and potentially very helpful in this case. Keenan has temporarily withdrawn that action in order to refile with even more incriminating evidence that will very likely be connected to the ITCCS action also. At the press conference last week, an agent provocateur going by the name Greg Renouf, believed to have Zionist connections and claims himself to have connections to Al Jazeera, attempted to disrupt the press conference, and apparently he has a reputation for causing problems among those seeking to bring greater truth into the world. This is important because it means that those in the cabal are realizing that this action now has the potential to go further and cause more harm to their power and control. The very fact that they have attempted to strike back with slander campaigns against both ITCCS representative Kevin Annett and civil prosecutor Jason Bowman is a good sign that they are on the right track. Jason Bowman, from the Association of Civil Prosecutors, joins us live on Cosmic Vision News this evening. Welcome, Jason.
Happy Friday the 13th, Jeffrey.
Hey, thank you. This lucky day. Hopefully we've got some lucky news to carry things forward for humanity with the actions that you're pursuing. What's the latest word in your world?
Well, I'm saying shake the dice and steal the rice, brother, because the jesters are on the run.
Okay, and for the benefit of our listeners, maybe just quickly, a very short and quick summary exactly what you are meaning by the jesters.
Oh, the jesters, we're going to be letting your listeners know a lot more about the jesters very shortly, Jeffrey, but there's a criminal case that occurred a couple of years ago in New York State. A couple of one jester judge, a jester police officer, and another jester, I believe a jester prosecutor, who was acting as a clerk for the jester judge. The three jesters were caught in a little bit of an FBI sting operation, and they were trafficking young girls to sex parties, and it was one of the most depraved and and dark moments of modern Freemasonry, believe it or not.
So the jesters themselves, are they part of the International Bar Society? Are they connected to the Illuminati? What exactly is a jester?
Well, I have a dossier right now, and we have more information on them that actually has been brought to authorities already. Some jesters are cooperating, and some have cooperated. This is going global very quickly. It began in New York State a couple of years ago. It's entrenched all through Canada, we find out now, coast to coast to coast. And we have been putting the pieces together very rapidly. So I'm very pleased to announce this. It all had to do with our lawsuit. That's what broke it. But as victims come forward, we're listening to the victims and we're connecting dots, and I'm very pleased with what's happened. I thank you for your excellent reporting, too.
Excellent. No, thank you. Okay, so coming back to the particular case that you're working on, the filings were done last week, and in the coming near future, I understand that you don't necessarily have to go to the federal court next week. What's the next step for you at this point?
Well, we've got information that we're bringing before. We're working with actually multinational authorities at the moment, including our people in Den Haag in the Netherlands, in respect of the ICC. Obviously, it's difficult. The ICC will be a court of last resort, but we need to move very quickly in respect of some of these indictments, given that there are victims actually this evening in Calgary, Alberta, and I don't just mean the animals at the stampede, but we have information about something that's going on there that the police may not be interested in investigating. So we hope that that's not the case, but in the event that nothing happens tonight or tomorrow or by the end of this little get-together in Calgary this weekend, then we're planning to move forward next week as soon as possible. As soon as we can get into a court, we may be convening a court de jour. I won't say where right now, but we have a couple of options open to us. Information is coming in very rapidly, and we've been speaking with some very high-ranking authorities. International folks have been flying in literally from around the globe. One of whom arrived in Ottawa very recently, and who I can assure everyone I've been in contact with from Tokyo, actually. And he's connected to the Keenan suit. I don't know whether that's true totally or not yet, because the information is being refiled. But what we've been talking about has to do with information on an attempt on his life, apparently. So we're keeping stuff under tight wraps, unfortunately, and can release it to you as we go. Quite a bit more by next week.
Great. Well, certainly we can look forward to hearing more about that. Now, as far as, you elaborated that some interesting partnerships are developing, and in the process of bringing greater awareness to this particular action, but also in the sense of building bridges, not only amongst the First Nations, but with the communities in Ontario, Canada, and essentially the world too, because this does affect the world. There's an event that is being organized this weekend. Do you have a few moments to share about that?
I sure do, yeah. There's actually, it's going to be should use the proper terminology if you bear with me, because I've just found out about it recently. It's been called for some time, and it's going to be a meeting.
The All Nations Peace Gathering.
That's technically what it is. Thanks, Jeffrey. I didn't have it in front of me here.
Okay.
And it's being held in, it's commencing on, opening ceremonies are actually going to be at noon on Sunday, and it's in Brantford, Ontario, which is, interestingly enough, where one of the jester meetings that involved the young prostitutes, the young victims that were trafficked here from America a few years ago. There was a jester meeting in Brantford, authorities tell us. But the media hasn't been telling us this stuff, so we're going for some answers as well while we're in Brantford as to who's paying the media there to tell their stories, what's going on with that. But it's actually the Onkwehauni, and that's the first name.
Okay.
In fact, let me back up. There's going to be a Chiefs Assembly as well, which is going to be going on in Toronto. And so what's happening is that there's going to be also this great peace gathering beginning on Sunday, opening ceremonies at noon in Brantford. And what will be happening is that people from all tribes are welcome, apparently. There's camping available, and people are going to come together and talk about these issues that you are dealing with on your show so often. The urgent situation that the Earth is in, the planet's in, the humanity finds itself in, the unbinding of what has been bound, and how best to proceed. So people will be listening, they'll be talking, they'll be celebrating culture as well, of course. It's summertime, and there's going to be families there, and we have a lot to celebrate, indeed, given that coinciding with our humble press release on July 4th was also, unbeknownst to me at the time, but the naming ceremony for a white buffalo bull calf that had been born, which is a very remarkable event indeed. 1 in 10 million chance, at least, of such an event occurring. Right. Yeah, and so the naming ceremony was on July 4th. A Lakota I believe he's a medicine man, did a naming ceremony. And now that, of course, has everybody wondering about the rainbow prophecies and all about that. So it gets quite interesting, Jeff, and I'm looking forward to attending this gathering. There's going to be a march also on Queen's Park. It's a 5-day gathering, so on the 20th will be a march of every different tribe that wants to be there, every different nation, on Queen's Park in Toronto. And we'll be marching right by that big Masonic obelisk, that Egyptian overlord symbol, and we're going to march right up to Queen's Park, right on by the Federal Court of Canada, and we're gonna shout loud and clear whether the media's got the cameras rolling or not to feed to the mainstream, but we're going to be there in the real stream, and it's going to be rush hour on Friday, and people are going to kind of notice what the heck is going on with this peaceful march of all these peaceful people.
Now,
hold in hand, yeah. Exactly.
Well, now that you've had some degree of success with the lawsuit that you're filing now, I understand that another tribe in Canada last year attempted to file a similar action, but they didn't have the same success that you have had. What's the difference this time around?
Well, we're proceeding differently than they did, and it's not that one is right and one is not. It's that when you proceed according to the rules don't apply to everyone equally, it seems, and it's really depraved, but it's true. So what happens is that we find out the Holy See operating as Pope, given whatever Pope X or Pope Y, whichever one's alive at the time, and who they've got in that chair. But it doesn't end with that. There's also other aspects of this Holy See that include the United Church of Canada, which is, you wouldn't think. It gets very depraved. You begin peeling these layers of onion, and it gets difficult to understand who you're really suing in the first place, and who needs to, and who within these murky organizations really will show up in court to account. How do you find them? Where do you find them? These are tricky questions, and of course the Holy See tried to outsmart or outfox outmaneuver at least the First Nations people yet once again, because they claim that Canada has granted, they appear to be claiming anyway from what I've seen, that Canada has granted every accountable member of the Holy See diplomatic immunity within Canada. So it's unclear to us at this stage whether that applies to the priests themselves or not, but I'm gonna say that it appears that it does. The agent provocateur and some others have been trying to suggest that the Queen and all of her ministers and agents share this sort of equal immunity, which I found laughable at the press conference, as you may recall. But but seems that they're rather elusive fish to catch as well, because they get a head start on the notice and have a clever lawyer who brings these motions apparently from King Street, up to the federal court office, and is able to get, as what happened last year, I understand. Right. They were able to get these summarily dismissed.
Okay. No, that's excellent. All right. Yeah. No, we're starting to run short of time, unfortunately. But as always, we will be bringing you back to the show for the updates because of the significance involving this case. So thank you for taking a few moments of your time, Jason, to update us. And we look forward to hearing some of your future updates. And good luck with all.
That's great, Jeff. Nice to be on and good to talk to you as always. We'll keep you posted. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers. Been talking with Jason Bowman from the Association of Civil Prosecutors, who is representing the lawsuit of the ITCCS, naming the Government of Canada, the Pope, the Queen, and numerous other entities in crimes against humanity of various churches and heads of state. The financial world continues to implode, with increasing revelations taking place to expose fraud, corruption, and more. If you are one who has still been doubting that incredible changes are taking place at this time, it is now possible to start seeing some very real signs that the world we once knew can no longer continue in its present form. Europeans are generally much more aware of what is going on in the world right now, and it is North Americans that are being kept predominantly in the dark about much information that many other parts of the world already know. Last week, the Guardian.co.uk web news site reported many people are venting their anger at the Big Five banks by taking their money elsewhere in light of scandals involving NatWest and Barclays. A campaign group called Move Your Money UK shows an explosion in shifts from bigger banks to smaller banks that customers hope will have a more ethical approach. The scandal that has more recently involved Barclays Bank is a scandal that could become very global in size and significance. In a different article on business, the Guardian.co.uk site reported that the CEO and COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Barclays, have both resigned in response to the LIBOR scandal, the system by which bank rates are set internationally for borrowing. LIBOR is known as the London Interbank Offered Rate and is the average interest rate estimated by leading banks in London that they would be charged if borrowing from other banks. The LIBOR scandal has exposed frauds and abuses, and Barclays is one of the first to be publicly exposed. BusinessInsider.com wrote a fairly good summary of numerous events in an article dated June 29th and called Connect the Dots, Bailouts, Bankruptcy, and Gold. 8 key points are made in the article, and the conclusion being made is that European governments are insolvent. European banks are insolvent. U.S. governments are heading in this direction. Even the best U.S. banks are not as strong as believed. Foreigners are abandoning the U.S. dollar and seeking alternatives, and gold is money. According to the article, these events are all connected, and the trend is becoming so clear that even the most casual observers are starting to wake up. When you connect the dots, the next steps to lead to what may soon be regarded as an obvious conclusion. The system, as it exists right now, is crumbling, and no amount of self-delusion can make it go away. This is to be expected. In today's message from the Galactic Federation via Mike Quincy, the following was offered.
There are delays as you see it, but much more is taking place all over the world. Our overall view and knowledge indicates that the end times are well underway. The immense resources about to be used will ensure success as planned, and with reports from several reliable sources, you will soon be aware when the arrests become widespread. It will be the first big step towards clearing the way for everything else to take place. The main point is that it has commenced and will suddenly burst into large-scale action. It will be of such an impact that by no means can it be kept quiet by those who hold back the real news. What is encouraging and timely is that day by day, many more people are beginning to question the actions of those in charge. They are seeing through the lies and cover-ups and beginning to question what has happened in the past. That pleases us, as it is loosening the controls the cabal have placed upon you, and the power they have exercised over you. People power is what they fear, and it is gathering momentum as groups are being formed that really do have some impact. A most useful method of making your wishes known by way of petitions is now spreading. Let your voices be heard, and it becomes more and more difficult for those you are targeting to avoid the issues. In just a few years, your position has changed, and the scales of justice are swinging your way.
In his weekly message from the Galactic Federation, Sheldon Neidl also offered some words about the rapidly expanding revelations. According to Neidl, the Dark Cabal is reeling from some major accusations that are reaching the mainstream media in a number of European nations. These accounts of wrongdoing include the daily fraud involving setting the interest rates for most of your world. And yet, these revelations are only the beginning of what is to follow. Your world is engulfed in a tide of ever-mounting debt that is a result of these self-serving activities. And it is for this and many other reasons that the Dark Ones have reached the end of their protracted rule upon your world. They have long withheld from you a wide range of advanced technologies and related appliances, and our Earth allies have insisted that one of the first acts of the new governance is to bring these discoveries into the limelight. These technologies can vault your societies forward to a point where first contact makes more sense. Added to our own technology, your now suppressed devices can reveal to you how best to serve your planet and your fellow humanity. These changes and more are going to push humans further outside of their comfort zone regarding their current perceptions of the world. Some will be able to adapt, others may not be able to, or they may not be willing to. Many lightworkers are experiencing frustration at certain delays that have prevented key information and news from being revealed to the world, and certain actions that concretely show that the changes that they have been talking about are really happening. Both the galactic and celestial realms have offered that they are helping to the extent that is allowed by universal law, and as things change upon the planet, their ability to help even more is increased. Their desire is not to feed the fear of the Dark Cabal, and thus any delays experienced are meant to help reduce, if not eliminate, excessive suffering on the part of humanity more than what is currently being experienced. What is becoming clear is that the once secure financial district of the sovereign city-state of London City is imploding, and along with truths coming out about the Vatican, another sovereign city-state, it will not be long before the city-state of Washington, D.C. also collapses, allowing a new system to be brought into existence that is expected to be fair and more honorable for all. There is a petition that has been posted on the Avaz website calling for the arrest of bankers. The website is hoping to get 1 million signers within the next few days in support of the EU finance regulator Michel Barnier, who is standing up to the powerful banking lobby and pushing reforms that would put bankers behind bars for frauds that they have been involved in. The link to this page will be posted on the summary for the show, on the CVN Facebook page, the blog at Greenprint for Life, and numerous other sites. If it is also meaningful, please also consider signing the petition for the disclosure of our galactic families. If the same amount of people who signed the banking petition signed the galactic disclosure petition, more sources, including Avaz, would have to pay attention. The disclosure issue has the potential to heal all the other issues, virtually overnight, so that there is no longer a need to focus on so many smaller fires in our global society. Thank you for taking... As we move further along the year 2012, there are many messages that we hear about changes, about ascension, about who will participate and who will not participate, and why. As energies continue to change on the planet, there is an increasing energetic pressure on all people to begin resolving issues. Some will adapt and flow with these energies easily, others will not. When this happens, it will ultimately come down to 4 possible options. One is to shift into the new vibration and participate in the co-creation of the new Gaia. Another choice is to shift to the higher vibration, but still choose to leave the earthly plane to serve at a different capacity. A third choice is to resist all the changes and be forced to leave the earthly plane because it will be too painful to move into the higher vibrations. And the fourth possibility may involve physical removal from Gaia by members of our galactic families to be relocated elsewhere. For some of us, the idea of physical death will begin to disappear as we move into the higher vibrations. However, part of leaving the third dimension also requires that we make peace with this dimension. And part of making peace with this dimension also means beginning to address one of the larger stigmas that has been imposed upon much of humanity. And this is the stigma related to physical death and dying. Most of modern humanity, predominantly in the Western-oriented ways of thinking, has been commercialized and fear-mongered when the process itself should be as natural as life, because it is life. Shifting our relation to humanity, our planet, our galactic celestial families is part of this journey, but also in this understanding of oneness is that a physical death is indeed nothing to be feared. And indeed, it could be argued that it is a cause for celebration, because the soul has experienced all the lessons it came here to experience, or it has brought lessons to other souls that were agreed to before birth. This is a way of thinking that will be hard, very hard, for some to grasp right away. However, by shifting our approach to death, we also shift our approach to life. One practice that is gaining interest and attention around the world is that called death midwifery. Much the same as birth midwifery, a death midwifery practitioner is one who works with individuals and families through the entire process, as opposed to merely within one of the many aspects associated with the transition back to divine source. Cassandra Yonder, a death midwife practitioner living in Eastern Canada, shares her insights on this practice and how it can perhaps help all people, and especially the light workers, to help release further 3D attachments related to fears for family members who may or may not be choosing to stay on the planet.
To answer the question about what death midwifery is, I would have to define it as a willingness to be present to death and dying. We live in a culture that's defined by death denial, which means that we sort of attempt to hold death at bay by trying to keep it out of sight and out of mind, by not talking about it, by looking away from it. So death midwifery is sort of a practice or an orientation of a way to be in life, and it looks at sort of all aspects across the pan-death spectrum, meaning how do we walk in life with respect to the understanding that we know that we're mortal, and we know what beliefs do we have about the afterlife. How do we react when we might come face to face with the end of our life in terms of receiving a terminal diagnosis, or how do we choose appropriate end-of-life care? What happens at the time of dying, the end stage, sort of active dying? What are our beliefs there? What happens there? What kind of support might we need to go through that? And then after death, there's post-death care, sort of direct care of the body that's required or desired. There's ceremony and ritual that is, I believe, really important, that is a large aspect of what we've lost in our death-denying ways. We've lost touch with the ritual aspect of what might be important to happen at such a really critical and important time for individuals and for families, and ongoing grief and bereavement support. These sorts of services, the people who provide the kind of services that go with what I've just described, are very in different silos or different institutions. It's very compartmentalized. And so with this kind of idea of death midwifery, it's kind of bringing all of those things into kind of conscious awareness of the fact that they're all related and they're all under one umbrella. And I just believe that orientation kind of helps us to address the fact that death denial is going on in our culture. So people who are practicing death midwifery, such as myself, might be kind of doing any of those things. I know people who call themselves death midwives who are end-of-life shamans, so people who are willing to do spiritual journeys or journeys into the underworld related to death and dying. It might be with an individual who's looking at their own dying time or their afterlife, or a family member who has experienced a death and feels perhaps that there's some spiritual unfinished business there. There could be lots of different kind of things that could be looked at. There's psychopomps who also work in that similar vein. My own sort of offerings, I suppose, for lack of a better term, in death midwifery are just based on sort of the experience and the education I have, which is in the psychosocial realm. It would be related to grief and bereavement. But when I graduated from thanatology and went into the field of grief and bereavement, people, when I was looking for a job, were always asking me, are you pre or post-death? And I thought, that's such an arbitrary distinction to me. I think anticipatory grief starts long before the dying time happens, and of course exceeds, long afterwards. So it seems kind of arbitrary to me, and I think that's kind of what took me sort of in this kind of exploration. I've come to understand through being involved with the home funeral movement that while people are sad and scared and angry and lots of different things at the time of death, what we do with those feelings is really critical, and more critical, in fact, is that we do something with them. The funeral industry is kind of built on the concept of you're so vulnerable and broken at that time that we'll just do everything for you because you're not capable of doing anything for yourself. When in fact, my experience is that the opposite is true. The more families become involved and take care of these things, because what do you really do, when you're broken? You make tea, you do things. And this kind of visceral experience of being involved with post-death care, I think is such an amazing opening. It's really sort of an important aspect of healing and the grief process that people go through. To me, that's kind of the heart or the seat of death midwifery. And I also am really passionate about disposition. People have lots of different beliefs, religious and spiritual beliefs, about the relationship between the physical body and the spirit. The practice of death midwifery is one way of doing that, and looking at what our options are. And in Canada, could we have open air funeral pyres? There's one in the States, and I'd love to see some in Canada. What are our beliefs around bodies being burned or buried? I mean, I definitely think there's a strong ecological connection, and green burials has become an important movement that has just naturally aligned with home funerals, and that really makes sense to me. I think there's investigation, to look at your sort of program, Jeff. I guess that's where I would kind of hone in on death midwifery, is sort of, what is the role of spirit, and what is the relationship to the body, and how is that sorted out, and how can we look more carefully at that?
In the same talk with Veronica Keane earlier, Veronica also commented on death and transitions, saying that many would be finishing their roles on Earth for different reasons, and that there is absolutely nothing to fear. Her husband Monty and a friend of hers who contacted her after dying in a car accident have both said that death is almost a celebration of sorts, because it is coming home. It is the conditioning that has been bred into humanity to fear death, because those that have controlled the institutions of enslavement want to keep you alive through fear on their terms, so that they can kill you with all the little tools and games on their terms also. This is not how life was meant to be. Veronica described her near-death experience as wonderful, and says that some were given a choice as to whether or not they wished to go back into the human body or finish up and leave. Death midwifery may be a process by which people can begin to reconnect to the whole process, and even begin to find an aspect of celebration in the life lived, as opposed to the fear and negativity that has been pushed upon the masses. The full interview with Cassandra Yonder is about 20 minutes and can be made available upon request. You can send a message through the Facebook page for Cosmic Vision News, or contact me directly, Jeff, Geoff, at greenprintforlife.org. Cassandra's website is deathmidwifery.ca, and the summary to this show will have links to contact her and have other information about green funerals and media exposure. Transitioning to the new Gaia at this time does not require humanity to hang on or have attachments relating to the fears and stigmas that have been related to death. It is a change. Our current paradigm is giving birth to a new paradigm. With this change comes emotions and feelings about everything that has existed before, as well as a fear of the not yet known, but is becoming more and more known. more familiar, and more comfortable. I'd like to take a moment before ending this week's newscast to bring up a question submitted by a listener. I chose this question because I feel it is very relevant, and I'm sure many are thinking the same thing. Diana wrote in to share the following. Surely there is a percentage of disinformation in order to manipulate people. I realize that fact-checking is more difficult in alternative news. There's so much information to go through daily, and sometimes I feel like the young girl shoveling into a huge pile of horse manure, exclaiming, I just know there's a pony in here somewhere. Can't alternative news do a bit more to reduce the pile for us? Well, Diana, a relatively short question, but there is so much to the answer. First, yes, there is a percentage of disinformation to manipulate people. Much of the disinformation comes from within the establishment itself in the form of fear-based propaganda. And those of us in the alternative media, we have to try to discern what is the best information for as many people as possible. Part of the challenge, however, is that alternative journalists are subject to the same human filters that listeners are. As much as I may try to be neutral and balanced, I am still choosing stories that may or may not be meaningful to everyone. This is why discernment is required. In a way, my newscast and every newscast in some way is influenced by one or more individuals shaping the program, and ultimately it depends upon each listener to decide whether or not they resonate with the information and the energies of a program. It is not wise to believe everything that other people tell you, and this includes me also. Unless the information being shared has a feeling of resonating within your heart. Fact-checking, yes, very hard in the alternative media, especially when there is only one individual or a small team. Sometimes an individual or team comes across an exciting piece of information and is so anxious to share it that we may not do proper checking of the facts. Since my show is mostly once a week, I have a small luxury of having some space to catch myself, and I do not make this mistake by the time the show goes to air. It is correct as I believed it to be when I wrote it. If, however, other facts are presented afterwards to change that, I will try to correct a story as I did about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It is getting significantly harder to sift through everything at this time. Absolutely, it can be quite exhausting. Working through coal in order to find the diamond is part of the effort and part of the journey. It is the heart that is awakening in all people, challenging us to do our best to find whatever levels of love within a message that are closest to what each individual can handle in that moment. It may not seem like it, but alternative media has done quite a bit to reduce the pile, although as some truths are revealed, it then leads to multiple other mysteries attached to that one truth that must also then be investigated and revealed. The intricate nature of the complex web within our current paradigm that the elitist cabal has built was done so to confuse people and force them to give up from digging more deeply. Many souls are now doing this digging. I personally do not resonate with journalists like Alex Jones, but I do give credit where credit is due. He has served to awaken people. However, in awakening people, he is also not taking them far enough. To my knowledge and belief, Mr. Jones never speaks of love, compassion, and forgiveness in his news, and he has rarely, if ever, truly addressed the nature and issue of our galactic families and their presence, the one truth that, in my personal opinion, can take care of all other truths. Mr. Jones does his job so that he can stay employed and stay popular. I was led to a clip to a movie called The Hunger Games.
Seneca, why do you think we have a winner? What do you mean? I mean, why do we have a winner? Hope. 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 It is the only thing stronger than fear. A little hope is effective. A lot of hope is dangerous. fine, as long as it's contained. So contain it.
The unfortunate thing about this clip is the use of the word hope. If the law of attraction is applied to hoping, then you will never achieve anything because you will always get the experience of hoping. For those who have seen the Green Lantern movie, the power of will, characterized by the color green, is the force that is strong enough to oppose the energy of fear. It is one thing to hope. It is another thing to move beyond hope and into the face of fear through the sheer will and determination. Many are hoping for a better world, but nothing happens until some take that hope, manifest it as sheer will to transform that hope into something tangible and meaningful. The Dark Cabal has been giving just enough to the people of the more advanced countries to give them hope of something better, but without giving them enough to empower themselves to the point of being able to overrun those in control. The Cabal always has more advanced technologies while releasing just enough to fulfill the illusion that those in power truly care about the people. It could be argued that Alex Jones may be one who reveals truth, but only enough truth to keep people wired up to the system to rebel in ways that are not necessarily in line with a 5D way of thinking. Talk in numerous circles is now reflecting an increasing opinion that certain whistleblowers recently are building up the people to the same degree or to some degree of truth while still focusing on ideas that weapons and certain actions of self-defense and aggression may be necessary. Certain journalists have done their job to awaken people, but then another group of alternative journalists pick up where they left off and try to take people to the next level of awareness and awakening, to perhaps choose a message and a system of belief where any kind of violence is not required because there is a deeper understanding of how we are all connected. Cosmic Vision News is trying to be that kind of program, and hopefully there will be other people who are equally passionate, but who have more money and resources, and who will be able to create a team of enlightened journalists who will have greater heart, passion, compassion, and awareness to this profession. I hope that there will be networks of other teams that will be able to cover more news than I am currently able to. This will help reduce the pile even a little more. If I was an individual like Richard Branson, who owns the Virgin Empire and Virgin Galactic, I might choose to create a larger network of Cosmic Vision News and have teams do what I am trying to do. Having said that, however, I also recognize that creating a network also brings the risks that exist with current media networks. Therefore, an awareness of this must always be kept in mind and in the heart. It may not matter what stories are covered within the network programming, as long as the larger goal is kept in mind, to empower humanity in co-creating the new Gaia, to serve humanity, our planet, and our galactic celestial families while receiving all the gifts, the joys, the health, the abundance, and the blessings from all of those in return. Humanity is slowly realizing that the more we want of something, the more we must be willing to give it away to others. If one wants more love, give more love. If one wants more money, give more money. If one wants forgiveness, give more forgiveness. It is a universal law. In journalism, then, if a journalism wants more truth, I can perhaps trust that he or she will be connected to those who can give that truth if the journalist is truly committed to serving humanity and the planet with as much honor and integrity as is possible in that moment. Honestly, I do my job, so a day will come when I will not have to do this job any longer, because the world will be the kind of world that I would rather live in. Thanks for your question, Diana. I hope this brings some greater clarity. For those who follow solar activity, a coronal mass ejection warning has been issued for this weekend. Energies should be arriving. The coronal mass ejection was rated as a 1.4, and there is a strong R3 radio blackout. The energies will be coming to Earth over this weekend. So that is the unfolding consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is a part of the Inlight radio group of programs heard at this local time each week. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you that you have to know what sparks the light in you so that you, in your own way, can illuminate the world. Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love and hold the vision of light and peace in your hearts and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.
Thank You White Knights is supported by ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, home of wellness products for the health conscious such as MMS1 and 2, Lugol's iodine, DMSO, colloidal silver and MSM at ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, shipping outside the United States available. Link below. This is Thank You White Knights and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit thankyouwhiteknights.com.